You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome back to the Cards to the Moon podcast. This is episode 104, and it is our first episode of season 3 and of 2023. My name is Clark from 5 Card Guys on Instagram and 5cardguys.com. And with me as usual is Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards on Instagram. And John, who is usually also with us, he couldn't make it today, but he should be with us next week. All right, so off the top, big news in the world of soccer and of sports in general is that Pele, the iconic soccer legend, winner of 3 World Cups for Brazil and 10 league titles, died on Thursday, December 29 at the age of 82. I think it's fair to say for us, Pele was before our time, but the fact that we knew who he was and how important and relevant he's been to the game of soccer across the world, including here in North America, says something about the man. Hyung, anything you want to add about Pele?
Man, it's I guess sad day. You know, legend dies in any sport. I mean, the impact he's left is huge on the soccer market, and you know, it just kind of shows that cards can be kind of like, as time goes by, a piece of art, right? So to be remembered, I know his 58 card is like iconic already, right? So it's kind of like that Grail 52 mantle kind of in the soccer world, right? So yeah, it's obviously, sad for the soccer world, sports world in general, for sure. Yeah, it's kind of a shock. You expect legends like that to live forever, but of course they don't, right? And he's lived his life though, for sure. Definitely. He made his mark, across the world. And, for me, it's like he popularized the bicycle kick that everyone tries to do in games. We all tried to do when we were kids and almost broke our backs.
That's right. Yeah, he'll forever be known for that for me, of course, amongst other things. But like you said, from a hobby standpoint, when we talk about vintage soccer cards, Pele is certainly a grail card for many collectors. And if you want to check some of them out, again, search Pele 1958 rookie, and you'll find some amazing cards just out there.
What's the highest graded for that 58? The iconic Pele, number 10.
Number 10.
Yeah, or the card number 10. But I don't think there's too many high grades out there. But
Editora Aquarella. I'm probably butchering how you say that set name. But on Card Ladder, I see up to PSA 7.
Oh, a PSA 7. Yeah. I wouldn't think that there's too high of a grade.
It'd be hard to get, those.
And we're talking 6 figures probably, I'm assuming.
You are, actually, last sold price, I don't know if this is correct, actually. Last sold price, it says, is $22,800.
Oh, really? That's not too bad, I guess, but
that was November of 2020, so yeah, and that was on Golden, but I'm sure that's gone up since 2020, even before his passing. I'm pretty sure that would be the case, but
yeah, I'm on Card Ladder right now. There's a PSA 7. I guess there's black numbered and then there's blue numbered.
Oh,
but there's one that sold for $66K. It's a pop 3 on a PSA 7. Yeah.
Okay. So. Yeah. I was looking at the blue number. I guess black number, the perforated card is more valuable. Yeah, I see that too at $66,000. Yeah.
So we going Grail hunting, Clark?
You know what? That's a really good segue to our next segment, because I think 2023, and we mentioned this before in, I believe, last week's episode, that 2023 is Grail hunting season. So without further ado, let's move on to hobby headlines. And just like we teased moments ago, our first hobby headline segment of 2023 is just the fact that we think that with the economy the way it is, and probably will continue to be kind of bordering recession, there's going to be good opportunities to scoop up some Grail cards at more affordable values. Of course, this is all relatively speaking, but for the most part, when we talk about Grail cards, they were pretty unattainable for many collectors during the hype of the hobby in 2020, in 2021, right? So now we're seeing some drops of 50, 60, 80% of those peak values. So my question for this segment is, which Grail cards are you looking to chase and potentially pick up this coming year if the price is right?
That's man, I guess the list could go pretty deep here because, you know, especially if you're into like sports cards as a hobbyist, right? This is when you're most happiest. Actually, I've seen so many more hobbyists be so relieved that, you know, prices are becoming affordable again, like before the pandemic. It's like that 2 years, the tower, that little spike. It's back to kind of like where, you know, the healthy growth period is, right? So for me, like, I'm a baseball guy, so my first thing is, you know, who do I believe in the long term? Obviously, guys like Trout, I still believe, you know, is one of the greatest baseball players in our generation. You know, so that's something that I always wanted to target, a Bowman Chrome one of these days. But obviously, it's so hard to pull the trigger still, right? Because it's still not, you know, cheap money at the end of the day, right? But I'm going Trout. I'm going a bit Juan Soto because of the rarity of his cards. So I'm kind of excited about that hype. I would love to land like a Bowman Chrome or even a Topps Chrome Auto, just because even though they're sticker autos, I think like we talked about in previous pods, it's so difficult to kind of hunt down a Grail Soto, especially if people are in the long term, because like I said, Acuna has been the spotlight for the last 3 years or last 4 years in terms of the hobby. And even prospect in general. Soto wasn't really kind of like a dude where he's the number one prospect coming up, or where there's a lot of hype surrounding him with Vladdy coming in 2016, and Soto was kind of like behind the scenes, this skinny kid, right? So, and then as time went on, you know, rookie cards weren't as available, or even Bowman First Chrome, where Soto doesn't even have a base, right? So,
that's right.
So the auto becomes such a I guess a sought after card. So I would probably go in that direction as well, and a little bit of Luka hunting. I mean, after, you know, yesterday's performance or a couple days ago, the stuff he's doing is just incredible, you know. And I think the narrative will change, especially in the hobby, because if Luka does have, you know, a push of that MVP race, I think it will definitely, you know, I guess I still think there's a lot of prices to correct themselves on Luka cards. So I think some prices are still expensive, where I don't think I'm going to go particularly maybe Prism. I think it's still potentially overpriced because everybody wants Prism. But there's some Grail cards I think that are a lot affordable than they ever were, right? So I think it's time to you know, potentially snake up a big Grail card of a Luka type player. And I think overall in general, I like this conversation because now we're talking long term, right? Because when we're talking Grail, we're not, at least I'm not thinking of an immediate flip, right? Unless obviously the price justifies it. But, you know, these Grail cards don't come by, you know, often. So it's more of a slower paced kind of like, okay, when's the right time? I don't mind paying, you know, let's just say I'm not buying it at the dip. Like I'm not trying to snipe every single dollar off that dip and trying to time it, because these Grail cards don't come up often. That's the whole point, right? They're like hard to even buy. Even if they're available, you're like, oh, I got to get the money ready or whatever it is. It's not a easy process per se, right? So that's kind of the direction I would go in terms of my Grail hunting. So what about you?
Yeah, no, you made some excellent points, and I love the perspective on when we're hunting Grail cards. These aren't necessarily short-term flips, and I'm in complete alignment with you there, because, you know, like for me, I've been kind of ready to snipe a Grail card for the last maybe 5-6 months, and I haven't pulled the trigger yet because, like you also said, it's not as easy because some of these Grail cards aren't. It's not like hundreds of dollars. We're talking thousands of dollars still, exactly, right? So it's a good chunk of change, but in comparison to what they were, it's relatively affordable. So yeah, I and I'm ready because I have some cash on hand, like especially after I sold my Aaron Judge refractor.
Oh, it cleared with golden.
With golden cleared, so I'm at 2.5K right now, just kind of sitting there, and then I'm gonna add on top of that with whatever comes my way in terms of any Grail cards that might be of good value in my opinion. So like you already mentioned Mike Trout, his Bowman Chrome base auto, BGS 9.5, just to give you some numbers, it's ranging right now between 6K and 8K US. Okay, and at its peak, it sold for almost 36,000 in May of 2021.
That's crazy.
Right? So
I remember. I remember before the pandemic, it was floating around 5 to 10K at the time, and this is when prices started going up because it started. I think I could be wrong, but in 2019 it was hovering around that 5K, and then as time went by, it kind of like started picking up, and then started really picking up steam at right before like start of 2020. It was sitting around 10 grand and just absolutely blew up. Yeah, that's so true. And we forget those times, right? When it was at that price, and now it's kind of come back down. And that's also a good point where the pre-pandemic prices were at, like you said, anywhere as low as 5K, right? And then it peaked with that tower that you mentioned, and when you look at all the different graphs. But then it's come down a lot, but it's never at that pre-pandemic level. It's just slightly above, and that's why you got support at, I think, at that price point, right?
That's what you want to see for sure.
Right? Yeah, 100%, and that's just a sign of a longer bullish run that people are looking at as investments. They're not looking to flip this product, right? So so for people that are looking to snag a Grail, when you see that kind of pattern, it might be a good time to get one when it's close to what it was pre-pandemic, but don't think it's going to go below pre-pandemic. It might be that might be a bad sign though if it goes below that resistance,
Then just wait till it goes to zero. You might as well wait.
It might be going down that way.
But you're still seeing patterns right now of some of the Grail cards just having that resistance level. Just above pre-pandemic. And Mike Trout is kind of a good example of that. At 6 to 8K right now, like it's been kind of ranging because I've been looking at it for the last half year and hasn't gone below 6K. Not that I've seen anyway. So yeah, that's a good one. And I got 3 more examples, and they're all in basketball because I mentioned this in a previous podcast that basketball just saw a huge hyper growth during the hobby peak, more than any of the major sports, in my opinion. So it's come crashing down just as hard. And I think there's definitely more value to be had on some of these Grail cards that just went for phenomenal amounts during 2020, 2021. So I'll give you 3. And I mentioned this before on certain episodes, I'm sure. Kevin Durant, his Topps Chrome Refractor rookie card. I'm looking at the BGS 9.5 because that's more in my budget for this kind of card. It last sold for $2,700.
Wow. Very, very doable.
Very doable. And it at the peak, it sold for $27,000 in March of 2021. So just take away a 0, and that's where we're at now, 27,000 to 2,700. And even if you look at the PSA 10, it's going for about 6K, right? And if you look at the peak, which was March of 2021, that sold for almost 57,000. Wow! So the drop is even greater.
It's like
there.
A 10x, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really tempting for people that believe in KD. I think he just passed another. I think he's in the top 15 now in scoring. Yeah. Right. So he's a guy to look at for sure. LeBron James, of course. If John was here, he might have something to say about this. but since he's not, I'm going to mention LeBron James, his Topps Chrome Refractor, BGS 9.5, is going for about 8,000 US, and that sold in February of 2021, according to Card Ladder, for $104,500.
Unreal.
Yeah, that is. I think that's a real sell. But yeah, over 6 figures, or at 6 figures for that card. And this one I've been always keeping an eye on, the Stephen Curry Bowman 48 rookie. I love that card. And the PSA 10, I've always been looking for the BGS 9.5 because that was more my budget. But now the PSA 10's come down to the level where I'm like, okay, maybe I'll pull the trigger on it. It's around 4,600 now.
Right.
And this sold for almost 10K in February 2021. So the drop is not as huge as the LeBron Topps Chrome Refractor that I just mentioned, or even the KD Topps Chrome Refractor, but still pretty much half price at this point.
Yeah, I think Curry's that character that everybody still kind of like really likes, as opposed to a polarizing player. Because I feel like like LeBron, a lot of people kind of sold out. It's like, you know what, I'm good without LeBron. As opposed to Curry, there's a lot of people still kind of like bullish on Curry and, you know, think that he might be more valuable in the long run, right? So, but I agree. I think LeBron is a buy on certain cards, obviously, and like stuff like the Refractor. I think they're, you know, you can't go wrong with that as a long-term investment for sure, because, you know, even that, you know, 2003 Topps Chrome image is so iconic, right? Like you have, you know, celebrities, you know, cracking open cases, trying to chase it. It's just, you know, the card to kind of get. It's no different than like that Bowman Chrome Mike Trout, right? So
true.
Yeah. Maybe you talked me into it. And the KD sounds good too. You know, I think KD's value, you know, that 10x, like 10x is a pretty big amount, you know, as opposed to kind of like a 50% reduction.
I mean, that was pretty hyperinflated, but in comparison, I think looks like pretty good value in my opinion. But yeah, you know, I also want to mention, like, on my 5 Card Guys Instagram, I've been posting a lot of these reels about how far some of these cards have dropped,
and people don't like you, Clark.
People are not liking me for stating facts.
Yeah,
okay?
people are getting angry at you. I don't get that. It's like, for those that are angry, it's like, what? Why does that anger you?
I mean, like some of the responses that I've read is that they think I'm scaring away people that are in the hobby.
Oh, God.
You know, or I'm just shining negativity, which wasn't my intent. I'm just, I mean, now I'm phrasing the captions of these posts because I'm still posting them. And, you know, to be fair, there are a few people that say, like, I love these posts. Like, it's just informative.
It's informative. And, and you take it for what it is. It's not saying, you know what, the way I see it, because I look at it, I'm like, wow, that's a great buying opportunity. Thanks for the info. Worst case scenario, you ignore it. Isn't that a beautiful thing? You could just scroll past it and just like be okay with it. No, I deal with that, you know, obviously in business, being in kind of like digital marketing and stuff like that. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, it's informative stuff that if you're giving value, how is that negative?
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, I agree. But yeah, and that's how I've been rephrasing it now. That's like, hey, is this a time to buy this card now at this price? Because that's how I feel, to tell you the truth. It's
because you're such a nice guy, man. If I was running that 5 Card Guys site, it would be shut down.
It's all good. You know what? It might be my journalism background. I have a pretty thick skin.
Yeah, for sure.
And you know, I understand human nature. You know, people become loud and more opinionated when they have something negative to say. Right. That's just the reality of life, unfortunately. But I love all the people that are out there, you know, being more positive and showing me support. So shout out to you guys. But to my point. But my point for just this latest ramble is that I'm telling you, it's a buying opportunity for a lot of these cars that you once thought were way too much, you know,
And we talked about this like earlier in the year. We expected this to be that buying period. You know what I mean? It's like that was in the summer where we're talking about, you know, we're entering a bear market. You know, there's obviously a lot of correction to be had. But those Grail cards become, you know, very difficult to attain. So in the winter time, December, January, we said there might be stuff that go on sale that, you know, could be a good buy at the time, right? But I honestly, in my opinion, and depending on the season, right? Because you see some cards that are actually still growing, depending on the, you know, what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. So there is some like action in a positive sense in certain markets, but they're all short term. right? So they're all like, influenced by kind of like today's game or yesterday's game that they just played because, Luka just scored, 60 points, grabbing 20 plus, boards. Triple double is ridiculous, right? So stuff like that where it's influenced and then it will eventually correct itself again, right? So, we're just seeing that pattern. And I think it's throughout the next few months, up to about six months to a year, I think there's still going to be a dip, to be honest. But that's why, like, for me, it's like it's always been kind of changing that mindset to thinking of long-term assets as opposed to, short-term flips. Because I think a lot of people too they're in the hobby world, and this was a difficult thing, I guess, to understand is the taxes, how taxes work, and I think a lot of people kind of got hammered on owing a lot because you're making way too many transactions in terms of selling, right? If you're not selling as a regular business, then that's all going as capital gains, and I think that's really hurting people. So I think the right play is stop making profit and paper handing and basically go long term with rare cards, right? With less cards but rare cards, and then hold them as more of a long term approach because. Like I said, if the market dips even more within the next year, like I say, I'm okay with holding my Grail cards. Like they weren't going anywhere in the first place. I still believe in the player long term, and I have, for instance, Tatis. It's like I still believe in Tatis long term. I don't want to sell any of my Pop 1, Pop 2 Tatis cards. Right? It's almost like, I'm in it for the long term. Let's see where he is in 10 years or whatever it is. Right, and we'll make a decision then. And as I do that, I'm looking forward for Tatis's return. I'm looking forward for watching the Padres, see what they do, right? And obviously, there's a lot of risks, and you could make arguments on both sides of the coin. But that's what we say: is collect what you love. At the end of the day, because I don't give a crap about other people and what prices are today, right? Yeah. And that's the best formula because then you're buying stuff with sound. Kind of like with intention, and you know what? There's times you cut your losses, right? Your Manny Margot's of the world. You just kind of let go at the time and cut your losses. But at the end of the day, as you become selective and have a long term kind of like mindset, I think you end up doing pretty decent for yourself in the long run for sure.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And excellent advice and strategy. I'm right behind you. That's my strategy. Like the long-term goal is to add Grail cards to my PC, and they could be investments later down the road to invest in even more cards that you find more valuable, right? Like
and build that portfolio.
100%.
And you know what? Sorry, I was gonna say a good thing instead of like selling is to trade. Is to constantly trade, even if you're in profit. It's like trade up that profit.
Excellent point.
It's not triggering any events, right? So
that's true.
It's off the books. So it's like a good way to kind of upgrade without getting hit by the tax man.
Yeah, excellent point. And that's what makes the hobby so great because as the hobby grows, more trading partners. And, when you get to know them,
the community,
the community, exactly. Like it just becomes easier and just more fun. And that's how that's one way you just kind of maintain the growth in the hobby, right? Not just about quick flips and investments. And I know, a lot of people have left already, right? But yeah, as long as the core is a collector at heart, and we talked about this before. You don't have to be 100% collector. You don't have to be 100% investor. Most of us are a combination. Hybrid, right? So, I love that trading option. I think there are. Speaking of trading, there are several apps that I'm aware of that are trying to make trading online easier, and that's only going to get better in terms of technology, in terms of security, and so and it's going to be most of it is kind of based within the US, but I could see that being more international as the hobby grows, and just getting over some of the legal issues of trading valuable assets and things like that. But I just think it's a matter of time, and as more money comes into the hobby, we've seen it with Fanatics, we've seen it with Arena Club, even Derek Jeter's company, like that's just kind of follow all this new technology, all these new apps that make the hobby more fun and more accessible.
Right. No, it totally makes sense. Yeah, 100%. I agree. And I like that that's innovation for me. It's like, you know what, if you build a platform that where I could trade, I have a trade value, and it's like, you know what, I'm okay with negotiating, a couple $100 off, because, as long as I get a card in return that might have legs, or maybe it's multiple cards where somebody wants to trade down with multiple slabs and I want to trade up to one slab, where it's like, maybe that guy wants to cash out, but he's having a hard time selling his higher end cards, so he will kind of liquidate into smaller cards where you could trade. I attain a Grail card without doing anything other than a secure transaction via the trade, right?
Right.
So I think that's stuff like that is what we talked about with these companies coming up with innovative kind of solutions to basically in the industry problems of what is needed, right? So this is what we talk about, of getting the hobby better. And as we kind of more money comes into the hobby, this is how the hobby is going to get better. Is we're starting to even see more opportunities, more marketplaces where the current hobby lacks, right? So you'll see that with grading as well, and some of the grading companies stepping up, like Tag and SGC. I'm glad there's alternatives to PSA, right? Without having it, it makes the hobby way better, and it makes it grow in a positive direction.
Yeah, gives more options to more collectors, and you can take it wherever you want to go. Yeah, totally agree. And, ultimately that's what makes us bullish on the hobby, because just seeing this innovation, just seeing the growth in innovation within the hobby is always a good sign, for sure. I didn't expect the conversation to go this way. I thought we were just going to talk about Grail cards, but I like what we're. I'm sure our listeners are appreciative of where we're going with this, and just kind of being more bullish, being more positive, despite my latest Instagram reels on the 5-card guy.
And you guys got to you guys got to meet Clark in person. He is like the opposite of negative. I'm telling you, this guy's always smiling. He's kind of enjoying his thing. So it's like I chuckle when it's like, do you guys understand who's behind 5-card guys? He's like the nicest guy.
I appreciate that, Hyung. And you know what? I hope I get to meet more people in IRL at these card shows, for sure. And then hopefully they'll see that what you just said is true. And
I'm
it's
just trying to
all
link
good.
more trades for you, man.
Love it. All right. Well, happy Grail hunting to all of you. Small time and big time collectors out there. We'd love to hear from you guys, actually, which cards you're looking forward to picking up in 2023. You could always reach out to us at 5-Card Guys on Instagram, or we do have a Instagram account for our podcast. It's at Cards to the Moon, all one word, and we check our DMs on the regular. All right, let's bring back a classic segment that we haven't done in a while. It's simply called Buy, Sell, Hold. And in this segment, I'm going to list 5 cards, and you tell me, Hyung, if you're buying, selling, or holding at their current price. Okay? The cards I chose this time is of players who are trending upward now for obvious reasons. You'll see. Let's begin with someone who is absolutely balling right now. You already mentioned him. His name's Luka Doncic. Just did a 60-20-10 triple-double, first
Crazy.
NBA player. Phenomenal statistic and achievement by Luka. His Silver Prism PSA 10, the iconic Silver Prism PSA 10, recently sold for $1,870.
Right.
The pop count for that card is 2,164. So it's been hovering around that area from 16, 17, 18, 1,900.
Right.
Of course, we've seen it come down from 7,000 at its peak. Luka Doncic Silver Prism PSA 10 at that price. What are you doing?
Man. If it's short term, God, this is dangerous though. This is dangerous. I don't like the purchase, to be honest. I don't like the buy.
Okay.
I think it's still a. This is interesting because I just feel like there's so much better value than the Silver Prism, right? I think it's still overpriced based on that pop count, and I think long term, I'm okay with pop 2000 pop count in the long term. Short term, I'm not a fan. I don't think it could sustain those prices, right? So it's like if I'm playing the long game, I don't mind buying, but if I'm playing the short game, I'm probably selling still because I think it could. If Luka doesn't win MVP, I think it's still gonna go south, right? So it's like you're banking on, him basically, winning something, whether it's a personal award or a championship. So I think what you're seeing is you're gonna see the price increase a bit back to that kind of like, I guess the Mendoza line, $2,500, Clark. I think that's where you bought in. But I just don't think it could potentially skyrocket like it did before, even though the peak was like almost like 8,000-9,000. It might have been more if at the peak. So I'm gonna say, too much activity in selling, in day trading with Luka. So I'm gonna say sell.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the latest sell, which was yesterday at 10:30 p.m. for 1980.
Right. So you see a spike, a little dip, or a little increase.
Right. Probably because of the 60-point game, right? That makes sense. But you know what? I bought it at 2,300, and I'm tempted to sell myself. And like for me, I think because of the bear market, because of the state of the economy, and just the hobby hype of silver prisms in general, I feel like that's coming down to earth. And I think I bought into that hype, if I'm being honest. And I'm like, oh man, I wish if I had 2K, I'll cut my losses at 300-400, which isn't that bad. Right. Because, some of the more cooler cards of Luka's, even some of his autos or even the numbered ones, have come down more than the 300-400 that I would be losing. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like I could get better value for cards that I think are just better than the silver prism now.
So you could dump money, cut your losses in that Luka, put it into a different Luka card that maybe have more value or more leg potential, where you're not really losing that $400 loss, right? Exactly.
And I think that's part of what I just like, honestly, it's like I'm not feeling silver prisms as much as I used to. I like it, and once again, the Instagram reels that I put out of silver prisms or optic hollows, because they've seen tremendous drop for a number of players. Right. A lot of the comments, I'm reading them, say like, this is just a shinier base. And people are beginning to see that, silver prisms aren't as great as people thought they were, or, it's not as iconic.
I think we have this conversation in 5 years, let's just say. Mm-hmm. I think it's the same as the refractors, right? Of LeBron, right? So that's the thing. It's like if you're looking in the lens of true. Month to month, then for sure I think it's a sell. But if you're looking at the graph from year to year, I think 1,800 is still a good buy-in if you're long term on Luka, right? And you kind of like say, okay, you know what? I'm not. Maybe you're a guy that purchases one card every 2 years or every year, and then you're like, you know what, I'm not even looking at Luka prices, I'm gonna just lock this in the safe. So as these players build their legacy, I think that's what you're gonna start seeing with these. So I think there's not it depends on your strategy at the end of the day.
Sure. Yeah. You're making me want to change my answer from sell to hold.
I just think because you can actually make money off these silvers, because I could see Luka winning MVP and then them jumping up to 3,000-4,000, and people say, well, I made money off it. Well, yeah, of course, in the short term you can. It's not going to sustain prices there, right? Maybe in the long run. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, true. No, I'm going to still sell because to your point, I have a strategy. If I did sell at 2K, I'm trying to reinvest that right away into another card.
Nice. Yeah, makes sense.
My plan. All right, sticking with silver prisms, I want to also bring Zion Williamson's silver prism PSA 10. He's been playing phenomenal as well. Last sold for $1,000, give or take a few dollars. Pop count 1574.
1574, and Luka's was 2,000, over 2,000, right?
Yeah, 2164 for Luka, 1574 for Zion.
Oh man. And do you know off the top, was the Ja Morant silver prism the shorter print than the Zion's, or was Zion shorter print?
I believe the Ja Morant was 1459. Right? It was 1459.
Okay, so it's same. Pretty
Similar.
Much the same. Yeah. You know what? Like I'm in the same boat as Luka. I mean, Zion is absolutely tearing it up too. Mm-hmm. But like I said, the pop count scares me in the short term. I don't think, I think it's a trap. And I think prices are gonna kind of be volatile in that sense. So if you're here to kind of like maybe 1 month flip, I think there's opportunity. But then there's gambles too, right? You just never know what's gonna happen. But if you're in on Zion long term, which I don't think a lot of people are, I think he has to play many, 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 many more years before people commit to him long term. So I'm gonna say $1,000 is cheap, but I'm gonna still say sell.
Yeah. Yeah, Zion's definitely a different player than Luka, obviously. And to your point, just repeating what you said, that more people have more faith in Luka's long-term outlook than Zion. So I'm a complete sell on Zion as well, even at the $1,000. That's that's tempting for a PC if you like Zion, and it looks it's a really nice looking card. We talked about this last week, the Prism.
Yeah.
At that price, not bad, but I can see it going down a bit further. Okay, I'm going to switch over to football. 2 QBs that are trending upwards because there's a little bit of excitement heading into the playoffs. Trevor Lawrence, I took his XRC redemption card, PSA 10, just because his silver prism's such low pops, kind of like that Josh Allen thing. It's 35, I believe, for his PSA 10.
Very, very low. Yeah, I seen that.
Yeah. So for whatever reason, so obviously that the prices for that is pretty sky high, but and that's been trending upwards. But his XRC redemption PSA 10 is also trending upwards. Pop count a little bit higher, 126, so not even that much higher, but it's going for just under $800. Are you a buyer or seller?
You know what?
Hold?
It's interesting because obviously the Jags have been playing lights out, and Trevor Lawrence has been a big part of it. So you see an uptick on all his prices right now. It's kind of inflated, but I will say there is buying opportunity for sure, because especially the XRC, I think low pop, you're still at 126 pop count, and a lot of people doubted I guess Trevor Lawrence as a quarterback, and he still has a lot to prove. But I could see him, because Jacksonville was like brutal last year. He led the league in interceptions. Like, it was just a rough year for him, but obviously first year in the league, he's still figuring things out. And with the run that they have, I could see especially the XRC being able to make money in the short term, or potential profit in the short term, especially if you were able to get it before kind of like this hype, because I think this XRC hovered around $500, and it's still cheaper than kind of like where it was before, sitting at 1,000 approximately. So I like this better than kind of like the Zion and Luka play a little more, just because the pop count really is attractive, right? Whereas it's not as, I guess, risky. But then again, it all depends on kind of like your play. I think if Jacksonville makes it to the playoffs, I think that's a big feat. I think that's a great time to sell. So you could potentially pick it up. You have a month basically to make that decision, but it's going to have to be sooner than later, because you're going to have to wait for shipping times, and then each week you just never know what happens in terms of injuries and stuff like that. So you're going to have to be ready to kind of like make a quick flip. Otherwise, if I'm in the long term, I'm probably going to hold at this price. But I'll even say a buy at this point, because I think the buy-in's pretty cheap. 500 would have been ideal, not 800.
Right. And 500, it's sold according to Card Ladder just a couple weeks ago. So you're already seeing the uptick. 600 last week, and then 790, $800 a few days ago. So you're seeing this trending upward. Even at the 792, I just feel like it's cheap for the pop count, and you look at Mahomes XRC, which is amazing looking card. I think that's going to hold tremendous value over time, and I think there's still a lot of believers in Trevor Lawrence, regardless of the fact that he plays for the Jags. And now that the Jags are respectable, you're beginning to see more people coming on back onto the bandwagon of Trevor Lawrence. Right. So I feel like it's still early enough for you to get it at a decent price. So I'm gonna buy now at this price. Right. Ask me again next week when it's $1,000. I might say maybe you want to make a quick profit and sell. But it's week to week with football. Usually it is always week to week if you're looking at the short term flips, right? Okay, the next QB, absolutely killing it. This team is killing it, and they're if you looked at the beginning of their season, people started to question what the heck's going on. I'm talking about the Cincinnati Bengals and their QB Joe Burrow. I'm going back to the Panini Prism Silver PSA 10, pop count of 198, and it's sold for $1,500 recently.
This is the type of silver prisms I like.
Okay.
Low pop count of the pre. This is why the Josh Allen. We talk about the Josh Allens and stuff. Obviously, the Josh Allen's not worth 10,000, but the pop count super low, even like a fraction of kind of like a Joe Burrow's. But I think in the long run, even though 1,500 is a high buy-in, there was a dip where I think there was a good buying opportunity for silver prisms. But I think with this low pop count and the way Burrow's been playing with Cincy in terms of kind of like taking them into a playoff run again, after last year, what he's done, he's starting to, like we said before, quarterbacks need to win. You need to take your team deep into playoffs, where it's playoff contention or, Super Bowl contention. And I think Burrow's doing that. So it's like, if you want to go early on a type of guy who's exciting quarterback in the next few years, that totally turned his team around. Because I think the first year they won like 2 or 3 games, and then last year he had 11 game, they won 11 games, took them deep into the playoffs, and then it's repeating this year again with 10 or 11 wins. So I like the trajectory of Joe Burrow and the pop count. The pop count is for me is the kicker, and something like a silver prism, PSA 10, there's it's not in the thousands like the Luka and Zion. So I kind of like the mixture of it. So I'm either a hold or a buy, because I think Burrow could be a long-term player, right? So I'm a buy or a hold at this point.
Yeah, makes sense to me. The only thing I'm going to say is again, I'm going back to the silver prism. The shine's kind of, so to speak, metaphorically kind of come off a little bit on the silver prism. So the play, although it is much different than basketball because of the much lower pop count. I hear you there. But still, I just feel like there's better Burrow cards. If you're into Burrow as an investment especially, there's just better Burrow cards for the value that you can get at this time in this bear market.
It's crazy. I was actually checking Burrow cards, and he has the select field level silver. Usually is they were supposed to make it a SSP, almost like a silver. Like you look at any basketball courtside silvers, they're super high in demand because the pop count's lower than probably in a PSA 10 lower than 50. So I don't know what the pop count is on his field level, but it's more than his silver prism. So I feel like that prism is like such a good buy, even if it's not numbered. Right. Like just because, like you're talking potentially a pretty low numbered card equivalent to, right, in terms of the pop count. So it's I think his cards, like the optic, there's great opportunities. Like you get like a colored numbered card still for a very decent price. But I think for this particular card is a little different. It's kind of like the Josh Allen, but not as rare, right? So it's like for $1,500, it's a little pricey still, in my opinion. But then we're buying Jazz at 3,000 with 1,500 pop counts, right, or 2,000 pop counts. So
yeah, no, that's interesting. I was looking at the select right now. The field level silver PSA 10, the pop count is actually 461.
Yeah, so backwards,
higher than Prism, like you mentioned, and it's going for $862 last sold price for the field level silver. So under 50% of the field or of the silver Prism value. But I'm still selling. No. So wait. I'm holding actually. That's
okay.
Yeah. If I have it, I'm holding because Burrow has upside. He has a great upside play, I think. So if I have him, I'm holding, but I'm not necessarily buying. All right. And the last card that I selected for this segment is Fernando Tatis Jr. We talk about him a lot. We jokingly said in our previous episode that this 2023 is the return of Tatis because we're all bag holders right now of higher end cards. The 2016 Bowman Chrome base auto, in particular, the PSA 10, last sold for $2,100. Pop count of 213.
Man, I think I'm a hold. I'm a hold, and I would like to see the price a little cheaper for me to buy it, probably under 2,000. I'd be really happy with that purchase. It's starting to get to that point where it's like, oh, I don't like base PSA 10s, paying I guess a premium for that. But it is his Bowman Chrome auto, right? In a PSA 10. So pop count is relatively low at 213. It's still pretty high, but I think there's opportunity there, and I don't mind a buy if I had some money to kind of like throw around. If I'm tight, I'd probably go elsewhere, to be honest. I think there's a lot of Tatis cards that have more kind of legs, but it is kind of like his most sought after card at the end of the day. So there is that. I don't mind a buy / hold. I'm definitely not selling at this price because I still believe in Tatis, and I think the 2016 Bowman Chrome is an iconic card for him.
True.
Especially the story of the Chicago White Sox, and what the White Sox gave for Tatis. So
James Shields, right?
Yeah. All right, it's something like that. Yeah. And Shields was done after that. Yeah, he was good in his time, but yeah, we got Tatis. So
come on, GMs. It's how risky it is to trade for pitchers. You gotta be more careful. But I guess if I can't remember what the situation was during that trade. Maybe they're going for it, but yeah, hindsight's 2020, I guess.
Right.
But I'm with you. I'm holding at this price. It's still risky. I still think it's risky to buy at this price because there's a lot of unanswered questions with Tatis coming back. We have. We're optimistic that he can perform, but you never know, right? Like with all the things that he's gone through, the injuries that he's recovered from, we haven't seen him play for over a year now, so all these questions still remain. So I think at just over 2,000, still a risky play. So I'm not buying at this price. But if I have him, I'm holding. Just being optimistic that he will actually come back to playing at his peak level sooner than later. So, and he's coming back sooner than people think, right? Like because the Padres made it into the playoffs, those games count for a suspension. So we're looking at, I believe, either late April or early May. So it's not June or July like we initially thought it would be.
Right. No, yeah, for sure.
Okay, we'll be for sure bringing back the segment throughout the year. Always fun to kind of check certain cards as they go up and down, especially in 2023. All right, let's end off this show with our regular weekly segment we call Pick One. If this is your first time listening to the show, this is when Hyung and myself and John, if he's here, we all kind of put up two cards or two players or two sets, and we debate which one we would rather invest in. All right. So, Hyung, do you want to start things off?
Sure. So I'm gonna actually use John's pick one. He couldn't be with us today, but he left one, and we thought it was a good pick one. It's a no-brainer for me, but so his pick one was, if you could make one purchase during this bear market, would it be a Grail PC? For the PC, for the personal collection, or would it be a Grail investment? So is it something that just you're gonna during this bear market, it's a card that you just want, or is it something that I guess you're gonna look at it strictly as an investment?
Right. I think I like this one because it is tempting to see these prices and you're like, wow, it's fallen a lot, but if the economy picks up again, you could really make a killing by choosing the right investment type card, like the ones that have previously sold for 5-6 figures, rather than, PC cards that might not grow as fast as some of these investment type cards. Right. So with that being said, for me, it's definitely Grail PC, like I want to enjoy these cards that I'm spending potentially thousands of dollars on. And like we kind of discussed in our previous segment, in this bear market, there are lots of opportunities to have these cards that you once thought was just unattainable because I'm not paying $59,000 for a Kevin Durant Topps Chrome Refractor PSA 10. But, $6K, I could scrounge up a few thousand, sell a few cards. And then I would love to have that as as a more of a PC because I love the way KD plays, and it'd just be great to have in my collection to show off to other of my friends, to some of my friends, and it's just more enjoyable. So from that standpoint, I'm looking to just add to my Grail PC collection during these kind of markets.
Right. So I'm assuming that when he meant from an investment standpoint, it's more of a flip, like with the idea to kind of like sell it, like a big Grail card to basically, if the money's there to profit, we're gonna sell it, versus kind of locking in a card in the safe regardless. Because I guess at the end of the day, it could still be an investment, your PC card, right?
That's true.
But I think that's what he was referring to when he...
Yeah, like... Yeah. I think as an example, I don't know, maybe like J-Rod.
All right.
That might be a PC for some people,
right.
But I love how J-Rod plays. But if I'm honest, if it's at a good price, I could see that being more of an investment type where I can make a good flip. Hopefully that he repeats his rookie of the year season. Okay. Seattle makes it deep into the playoffs. I'm looking from a investment perspective where I can maybe flip, hoping that the market gets hotter next year. Right.
So paper hand versus diamond hand. That's right. Essentially what we're asking. Yeah. I'm big on the PC. For me, it's like I would love to have like $1 million+ collection one of these days, where it's just constantly adding slowly to the collection, where they're smart, long-term kind of portfolio pieces, right. So think it's like generational, almost like you create this, amazing portfolio in the long term, because it's something that, I loved, at the end of the day. I enjoyed my whole life because I enjoyed the collecting aspect of it. I enjoyed the rarity. I enjoyed watching their careers, as a sports fan, where the ladder is too much work, man. Like, just like you're just constantly stressing. You're just looking for profits. You're not really enjoying the hobby the way it's supposed to be. So I could see both ways, because I've obviously lived in both kind of like hats. And I started this first for the kind of like long term anyways, for the PC, and then COVID hit, and then my whole strategy changed, and then it went from kind of like PCing to flipping, right? And then now that it's market's correcting itself, I'm going back to kind of like PCing. So for me, I'd rather have less cards.
Yeah.
Less cards, less transactions, and more like enjoying the card. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I'm definitely with you. Easier to organize. My wife would be happier with less cards in the home to consolidate where I could. So I guess it's a Grail PC sweep. All right, thanks, John, for that 1v1. We thought it was a good one. All right, my 1v1, my pick one is, I'm going with Jason Tatum, who's another baller who's playing lights out these days. Also in the MVP discussion. His green prism PSA 10, all right, which I believe went for $2,600 recently, versus his silver prism autograph PSA 10. The auto is a sticker and is sold for $1,900.
So do you have the pop counts for both?
I don't have it, but I can check while you think. I
think the green one. The green is obviously desired because it's the color match,
right?
And I think it's overpriced, to be honest, because of the color match. I don't think it's worth it. It's not like the green is numbered or anything. It's just greens were one per pack, I think, in one of the boxes, where you get a green every pack at the end. So for me,
the pop count quickly is 168 for the green, and I'm looking at the
so
silver.
somewhat low still, lower than I thought. Mm-hmm. And then the silver auto.
I don't have it here. It's not listed for whatever reason.
So and then, to my understanding, there is no base auto. The silver auto is the base auto, I'm guessing, and then there's colored versions.
I believe
right. Yeah. I believe that's the case. So I'm actually going. I think autos are underrated in general. I think even though they're sticker autos, I think in basketball, especially more than any other sport, autos are probably the most underrated, just because there's no like true rookie autos, or like that Bowman Chrome auto. It's always like sensational signatures, or like insert auto, or
Right.
like Select has good RPAs. So I think Select Luka auto, I think, is so undervalued in terms of kind of like a numbered Luka there. So I like the green card, the green prism on Tatum, but like I think 2,600 is a little pricey for that. I like the long term play on like a silver auto PSA 10, where I think autos will eventually correct itself in the marketplace. You even see that in older cards, like a LeBron auto versus like a numbered, let's just say a black refractor, right? So it's like a LeBron. Would you rather have a LeBron auto or a black refractor, or something like where it's a non-auto, right? Where you're paying, let's just say, $100K for a card like that, right? So it's like, I think the auto in the long term is a lot more valuable, even though it's sticker auto. I just think there's a sort of an illusion with the color match, right? Because I mean, it does look good, but green prisms aren't, I think, as rare as people think they are. So I'm gonna go the auto,
Silver
prism auto. Yeah, because I think they're underrated at $1,900. Yeah.
Okay. I might be biased because I do have a green prism of Jason Tatum, not a PSA 10, a True Gem BGS 95. Yeah. And it looks amazing in person, right? And
I know.
It I don't know. I've changed because I've talked about how exactly what you said. Autograph cards for basketball players, basketball cards are underrated, but I think it applies, for me at least, I think it only applies really for on-card autos. And I think with the bear market, I'm just trying to be more selective in how I'm strategizing of what cards I want to invest in, what cards I want to collect. And sticker autos just didn't make the cut for me. I'm going to cut them out. I don't like sticker autos. Maybe John probably dislikes sticker autos more than I do on this pod. So for that reason, I just... And I've come around with like non-autos being worth more than I think they typically should be. I'm like, why is this worth so much? Like, I would probably set the same thing about the Tatum green prism color match. I'm like, what? It's worth that much? and then I buy one. I'm like, oh, this is nice. This is really, I see why collectors want this. Even without the auto, because you and I come from the baseball card world where the Bowman Chrome autos, those are the ones to get, and the parallel color refractors are second tier, right? But it just seems almost like flipped upside down in basketball card collecting. Like the parallel colors are more revered than baseball cards in general, I think. So for basketball, for Tatum, and green is not as rare as people might think it is, but not every basketball player has a green jersey like the Celtics. So the color match also plays a factor in it for me. So I'm going to go with the green prism 2,600. I do think that's a bit high for a color match card, but it's nice. It's a nice card, and I think I'd rather prefer that long term than the silver sticker auto prism cards.
Like we said, hey, remember Chris Costa was on the show.
Yeah.
And we asked him that question, sticker autos. What did he say? Yeah. Inevitable. And it's true. It's like you can never get away from it. Otherwise, you won't be able to get the amount of autos that need to be. True. So, and it's different like I guess layers of auto, like tiers of autos. Of course, on-card autos. Let me be clear. I'm not saying sticker autos are better than on-card auto. I hate sticker autos, but it's still an auto, and it gives the card that appeal. Right. Yeah. So that's all I was saying.
And usually on-card autos cost a lot more too. So you're talking about different budgets.
A premium. Yeah.
For sure. All right. That was another great episode. First one of the year, like we mentioned. We're so glad that you came back to our podcast for 2023. And we hope you stick around for the rest of the year. We're already talking with a couple people to be on as guests of the show. Some of them are repeating guests. So stay tuned for that. And of course, John, our third co-host, will be joining us in next week's episode. So until then, we'll see you soon. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.